Is Adonai panav elecha ve'asem lecha shalom.
Baruch, Achi, Yehuda, bless you, my brother. Judah, Baruch, Achi, Ephraim, bless you, my brother. Ephraim, Shema, Yisrael, hear and do, O house of Israel.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome. We've got Rico Cortes with us today. How are you, Rico?
How you doing, brother? Doing good, man. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. We've got you back on here. When you were last on here, you'd mentioned this thing, the Temple app, and it sounded really neat and exciting. And you've had a kind of unique passion and calling underlying your walk and the many things that you're involved with. But one of them has been this love and understanding and learning associated with understanding the temple design and the many of the proceedings around it and a lot of the historical and cultural aspects. So when you had mentioned the app, when we talked earlier, I thought, well, I want to get you on when this thing's actually released. And I understand that we are live on the Android platform, Google Play platform, Apple Store for the devices, the phones and the iPads and whatnot, and Mac is coming soon. Is that right?
Yeah, MacBook is going to come out soon, and I'm really excited about it because you will be able to use this yourself as I'm doing today. I'm using my phone. I'm casting it through my MacBook into a big old screen. And if you have people you want to teach, you can use it. And you can, you can walk through the whole thing, and it's going to be enjoyable. I think it's engaging to every demographic. Every demographic is going to be engaged. Kids, adults, the elderly, everyone, because it's a little different. It's just, it has over 150 infographics, info dots. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what those are as we'll go outside.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, you would, the walkthrough that you were giving me there, it looks fantastic. And what a neat tool. So we're going to get some context on this and be able to sort of see where your vision's going with it. So just on that, as we look at this thing, what's the purpose and the vision of the app, and what is it that the Father's led you to on regarding all this?
Okay, the app and the research is not really mine. Is my teacher is Joseph Good. He's been studying the temple now for 40 years. I've been learning with him for almost 9 now. One-on-one. Travel to Israel, do temple courses, we teach together. And really what it is, he's been doing research for 40 years, and what he's doing is quite unique in that the Orthodox, they are only inside the box of Judaism. So they will read, for example, the Mishnah Torah, Talmud, and some of the rabbinical books that speaks of the temple. But they're not really considering the archaeology or the topography or the history. So the archaeologists, which I had the privilege to speak with, Ori Pelek Barkat, one of the leading authorities in the Royal Stoa, and Eilat Mazar, who's the granddaughter of Benjamin Mazar, Professor and Dr. Benjamin Mazar, who was one of the main archaeologists there since 1967. And Eilat Mazar was the one who found David's palace. We had an opportunity to talk to them. And they're not really interested in the religious aspect of it. They only care about the archaeology. What's interesting is that what Joe has done, he has taken all of the historical, all of the archaeological, all the biblical, and all the rabbinical, and also topographical information, and put it together. That's the research. And when I began to study with him, he was really focused on archaeology, and it's hard for me to deal with archaeology. That's not something I'm necessarily passionate about. But when I went to Israel with him for the first time for like 13-day course, just me and him and two other guys, I just wanted to go learn. So I became a student all over again. And I saw that if I understand the topography, the geography, and the archaeology, then I will understand the function of the temple and how the first century, the narrative in the New Testament is connected with the temple. You got to remember that a lot of the events in Yeshua's ministry happen around the feast, the temple, the Sabbath, laws of purity, sacrifices. So therefore, we need to consider the study of the temple, if not for the love of the temple, at least do it for the backdrop of the events in the New Testament. And if you do that, bro, your whole context. Now, let me put it this way. 613 commandments, right? Take a wild guess how many of those 613 are actually related to the temple. Just a wild guess.
Wild guess. I would say 37.3.
What, percent or commands?
Commands.
Gotcha. How about you, brother?
Related to the temple?
Yes.
247.
Man, you're close. 279.
279.
Now, think about this. 45.5% of the biblical commandments in the Torah deal with the temple, and yet that's the most neglected area of our studies.
Yeah.
And now, by the way, Ezekiel 43, verse 6 and 7 clearly tells us that the temple is the place where he has rest, the sole of his feet, and that's his throne forever. So, and we always say on Shabbat, Ki mitzion tete Torah. Ki mitzion tete Torah, right? Out of Zion shall come forth the Torah. Well, where is that from? Yerushalayim. Where in Jerusalem? The temple. So I really submit to you that if you want to understand the first century narrative of the Gospels, you must consider the study of the temple. And that can be very easily proven, but I don't have the time to go through it. It will take more time than I have tonight. So in the future, maybe someday you would allow me to come back and share with you some examples of what I mean.
Yeah, that'd be excellent. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we are dealing with about a third, of the commands relating to it from the Torah. And, it would be interesting just to, to really understand, I mean, the Father's got a foundation of something that's come right through. And like you say, I mean, we've got over a third relating directly to something, at least us here in the West, we have no concept of, not in our thinking, not in our understanding. Why would the Father lay down certain practices and ways that he does it? And I know that every time I look and learn and understand anything regarding what was, why the Father has used this as a part of his whole plan of redemption and the house of Israel. There's a richness that is hard. It's really hard to capture unless you really do understand some fundamentals and some things that are going on around here. And it's why I particularly love your passion about it, brother, because, and like, even when we just released the, the temple builder, the story of Solomon, we'd come to you, to really sort of, critique and fine tune some things. And you helped us out with that. And, whenever you're doing these kinds of things, the richness of it all is just, it really is something. And we overlook it and quickly just dismiss some things, and it's a fault, especially here in the West. But, and there's another thing too, this on the Rico, because you focused around the second temple here.
Only I study the tabernacle, the first temple, but because we're trying to convey the message of the Gospels and connect, the whole narrative of Messiah and also the prophets, we go to the second temple because many people don't realize that the buildings of the second temple were the measurements used for that were actually the measurements of the millennial reigns temple in the book of Ezekiel. There were just some measurements that they could not figure out. So, but all the buildings are the same size as in the second temple period. Many people don't know that. So that's why some scholars believe that the second temple was actually the third temple. But in
Right.
reality, it's not. It's the expansion that Herod did after he built Caesarea Maritima, Caesarea by the sea.
Yeah.
After 12 years, he decided to do something for the Jewish people and rededicate, what do you call it? Expanded, or he remodeled it.
Well, it's an interesting thing too, because Elohim, he doesn't do anything by chance. And the fact that, this is what was standing at the time of Yeshua represents, there's a whole vastness and things for us to understand, because ultimately it would be, destroyed and torn down as well. And
Absolutely.
but I don't believe the Father does anything, just, happenstance. And so it's an incredible thing to look at. And what you're doing here at the temple is that this would have been essentially what you're recreating here essentially is what Yeshua and the disciples and those, what we read in the accounts of the Brit Hadashah, were experiencing. This is what they would have seen. Is that right?
Absolutely. According to the measurements that we know, this is what it more than likely would have looked like, understanding that, we're dealing with with the software that, it's not going to exactly, but the measurements and the size of the buildings. And, it was like this. It had to be, because you have to consider the topography. You have to consider the geography. So you also have to consider the space where all the buildings, we can answer Matthew 24, verse 1 quite easily with this app, because it contains all of the evidence that they would have seen. So if you see this app and you see the buildings, then you read Matthew 24. Now you can really explain to the people really what the verse is trying to convey. Because we got to remember, the verse was written by someone who was there to an audience who saw everything he was writing.
Exactly.
I mean, people don't think about that. It's like Matthew did not have to over-explain certain things, because the audience he's writing to so many years later have seen the temple, understood the 500 by 500 cubits, understood that the buildings were inside those 500 by 500. Now, if I take you to the Temple Mount today, I'd be hard-pressed to find anyone within the Christian world, or maybe less than 1% of the Hebrew roots people, that they know where the temples were on the Temple Mount. So you would think that the temple is going to be a pivotal thing in the millennial reign, but yet no one wants to study it.
I agree. There's some things here where it's not, but the West, Rico, has been there, done that, but that's not the Father, and it's not Hebraic even thinking. In this picture and things that he's building, there's a great plan left for the millennial reign, and as we complete this final age of the whole Father's plan of redemption, the temple is a major part of this. So it bodes well for us, I think, to actually go, what? Let's understand what walking as a people together is in our faith, in our biblical faith, and in our understanding and belief in the in Messiah, and why he died, and why do we have all of this? Because all of these were integral parts, and I just don't think it's a coincidence that we've got his occurring right around this particular temple. And for me anyway, when you were showing me earlier, it was really quite neat to consider that, okay, fine, we might be making the best that we can with all we've got, but some of the archaeological discoveries are actually quite precise and serious now. I'm not sure if a lot of people know this.
It's like right on point. I mean, to the point that they can tell you time frame, location. I mean, it's incredible, the stuff they're finding. And the last 15 years, since 2004, actually, since I started going to Israel, the books have to be rewritten in the archaeology in Jerusalem, because there's more active archaeological digs right now in Jerusalem than ever before. And I mean, the story is changing every year. Right now, they are uncovering the pilgrimage road. The pilgrimage road was the road from Shiloach all the way to the temple. And by the way, we are adding it as an update for our app. So you will be able to actually do exactly what every Israelite will do when they will go to the temple for the high holidays, for the feast. You go to the Shiloach, you do the purification, and then you go up to the temple walking in the first century street. Well, guess what? They just found that street. They've been digging it for the last 11 years. And it's going to be open to the public. I stood on it. I saw it. I got a picture. I took a picture, for the first time in 2,000 years, that has been uncovered. And it shows the evidence that the temple was there. So, I mean, it's incredible, man. And the information that's there, sadly, it's like pulling a wisdom teeth, man. It hurts it hurts when I say temple to a whole bunch of people. They'd rather get their wisdom teeth pulled out than just study the temple. So it's a lonely road, but I'm willing to take it.
Well, I've appreciated your journey on it, and I've learned a lot from what you've kind of dug up, pardon the pun, in relationship to a number of things for us, and it is appreciated, Rico. And look, I mean, we're called to look at different spaces and different areas, as a part of the journey. The Father knows what He's doing, and He put that passion in you. And quite frankly, since I've known you, I've always wanted to know. Well, I want to know, what's going on with my brother. So, it's it's been a blessing, man. And look, and I love your passion and your heart about all of this. And I see that come through, and I know your love for Messiah. I know your love for the truth. And so this is just one of these things where it's just a joy to have you on the program and be able to look at these sorts of things, because quite frankly, it's quite something, this project you've been working on. And I'm excited to hand this screen over to you, and maybe you could walk us through and take us on a bit of a tour. Would that be good?
That'd be awesome. I wish I could take credit for all the research, but just to be clear, the research was done by my teacher, Joseph Good, in 40 years. And I'm a firm believer that you got to give credit to credit is due. And he worked very hard by himself. Man, he got invited to a conference in Atlanta, right? He drove from Texas. You know how many people were there? One.
Yeah.
For a temple conference. And, I said, so what did you do? He goes, well, I taught it. It's like, it's like now
nice.
The temple is opening everywhere. So I want to make sure that that it's clear that I had a few things to add to this model, but in reality, I'm just a facilitator, just to trying to get my teacher's research. And by the way, man, good news, bro. Check this out. We met this rabbi who was one of the original rabbis from the Temple Institute, and now he's doing his own thing. Well, what's really interesting is that he saw our app. And if you've been to Israel and you go to the HaKotel, the Western Wall, there is a particular VR, virtual reality model of the Second Temple period. He was one of the designers of that. Well, he saw ours, and he was so impressed by it that he is now not connected with the Temple Institute, but he is actually in charge of the temple education in Israel on all the children in the school system. And he saw our app, and he wants to use our VR and the app as the tool to teach the children in Israel. So pray, because this will be huge to be able to have that. And we are also, my vision is with Joe, is to have a location in Jerusalem where all the tourists from all over the world can make it a tourist stop to go and experience the VR of the Second Temple period that, according to archaeologists, tour guides, rabbis, is probably the most accurate in regards to all the available resources that we have to this point, considering archaeology, topography, geography, measurements of the temple, and also purity laws. And I'm going to give you some highlights there when I start going through it.
Right. Nice. And then at that point, you'll invite me back to the land to go and visit with you.
Seriously, hey man, I have a temple tour, January 2021. It's a temple, only Jerusalem temple, on-site course. It's what I do in Orlando, but it's going to be on-site in Jerusalem for next year. And then I have another Israel tour, November 2021 in English. I have one in Spanish in November 2020. Yeah, 2020. So we're busy, man. God is good. It
sounds really neat. I'd love to have been able to. It would be so cool to experience something like that there. I don't know how many people here on the screen have actually been to the land, into Jerusalem and whatnot, but there is there's just something that you can't explain while you're there, you know, in your spirit. And just to have anything that can help put things into context as to what was going on. I mean, for me, and following Yeshua, Rico, you know, anything that allows me to appreciate a deeper sense of, you know, whatever he was experiencing, whatever that might be, you know, is something pretty special. And it'd be neat to have something like that in the land. That's quite exciting, actually. I'll off the record, I want to talk to you about something around that.
I tell people that when you go to Israel, just the mere fact that you're there, it increases your biblical knowledge by 30%. Just walking through the land.
Yeah,
it just changes everything.
It really does, and there is something, there is really something that's unexplainable while you're there, and so this is really kind of exciting. Well, what I'm going to do,
time traveling. Let's take us back a couple thousand years, brother, and
let's do it.
Let me. I'm going to unshare here, and then we're going to get it handed back over to you, Rico.
Then you want me to share it? Is that what I need to do?
I'm going to. Yeah, because you're going to need to share your screen as you take us through this.
Okay. All right. So you should be able to see it now. Let me know if you see it, okay?
Okay. Does everybody see that? Just give us a hands up if you can see that clearly on the screen.
All right, perfect. Okay. So what you're looking at right now is a look from the Mount of Olives. We are taking in consideration the topography. Now you have the right side of your screen is the Royal Fort Antonia. On the left side of your screen would be what is called the pinnacle of the temple. If you look at your left side of the screen, in the corner of the walls, in the southeastern wall, that's the pinnacle of the temple. Well, how do we know? The size of the building of the temple was almost 22 stories high. The temple building was 22 stories high. So everyone assumes that Satan, the adversary, took Yeshua to the temple building. But in fact, that was not the highest place in Jerusalem. It was actually in your screen, on the left side of your screen, on the corner of that wall. It's called the pinnacle. That is the highest place of the temple, considering the depth of the ravine there by the Kidron Valley and the height of the wall. So that is the pinnacle of the temple. So right off the get-go, when you read the Bible, you're not going to get a GPS trying to tell you where they were. But when you study the temple, you understand that that was the highest place. And archaeology and history bears witness to this, of people who saw it and they said this was the highest place. Okay, so what we're looking at is a view of Jerusalem from the east to the west. And during the time of the red heifer sacrifice, they used to build a bridge from the eastern gate. By the way, the eastern gate that you see, the big gate on the right, that is the modern day eastern gate. That is not the original eastern gate. The original eastern gate is south of that big one. The big one that you see there on the right is called the Sheep's Gate. Okay, it's mentioned in the book of Nehemiah. So the one south of it is in line with the temple building. That was the one that is actually underground right now in Jerusalem. You can't see it because they have a cemetery there. So throughout, you got to remember that Jerusalem was conquered over 44 times. So every time it was conquered, you have more, they built on top of building, on top of building. So there are layers of history being uncovered as we speak in Jerusalem. Well, not today because Shabbat, but this year we keep uncovering more stuff. Now, this app is quite interesting because you look to the top left of your screen, you're going to have two very interesting icons. One of them is the settings. The settings, you're going to have English or Spanish. These are for the infographics. So all the piece of information we have, you can automatically put Spanish or English, and I'll show you that when we get there. You have the controls, you have the sound effects, you have music. It actually has music, and we can listen to it. If I put the volume up, you can actually listen to the music, okay? Now, that music is also included in the VR. We have a virtual reality. Everything that you see in the app for your phone is going to be on the virtual reality that we have. Now, the difference is that we are literally inside of it in the virtual reality versus walking through it with the app, but not inside of it, okay? But it's really, really incredible. Once you get in there, it's life-changing. Then you have this little map with a little red dot. Now, when you make it smaller, you're going to notice that there's a red, you see that little red arrow right there?
Yep.
It's letting you know where you are located, the last place you're located. So it gives you a sense of where you're at on the map, okay? Then you can see the city of Jerusalem from a high elevation. And then you notice it has all those little icons. Now, what's really cool is when you open the screen with your phone, I'm using my phone to open the screen and everything here. When I open the screen, I could go anywhere I want. I can go on the south of Shiloach. So let's go to Shiloach there real quick. And now, today in your app is included so you can look at it, right? You see the street? Did you see that street?
Yep.
That street has been found. Would you like to see it?
I would love to see it.
Now, check this out. I'm going to show you this street. I'm going to get out of here, and I'm going to show you. This is do you see what it looked like right in here? This the video that you see was taken this year by my teacher, Joseph Good. This is what the street would have looked like here in the center. Yeah. Now, everyone, when you go to Israel, you have to go to Shiloach, to the pool of Siloach, and you have to do the purification. No one can go whichever way they want it. They have to go there. Well, check this out. This is a video that was recently taken in September. Look at this. The latest archaeological evidence. Here it is. You're not going to be able to hear it. But what you will, though, however, you're going to be able to see the street that was found from the 1st century. Now, this is incredible. This has been unearthed for the first time in 2,000 years. Okay, and we were able to be there. I've been in that street. I'm hoping that I could get my tours there. Now, imagine if we go to Shiloach, all the way down there, and we start singing the psalms that they used to sing during the time of Shavuot, the Pentecost.
Yeah.
Going up to the mountain, because that street is going to go up all the way. Let me go a little farther here. It's going to go all the way to Davidson Center, to the southwestern corner. Look at this. Look at that street. It's incredible. That's my teacher and his wife, Debbie. Look at the street right here. Now, think about this. You would be able to step on the place where Yeshua, where Peter, where John, where everyone walked. 18 feet wide. Okay, this thing was huge. And approximately 18 feet wide. And we're looking from south to north. And this is underground today, under the city of David and the street. Now, so what we're going to do, let's go back to the app. So what we're going to do, we're going to put in the app an update, not now. So as you see here, you can see the street, right? In the app update, we're going to be able to walk up the street, and also in the virtual reality. So now your experience is as if you're there in the 1st century. So someone cannot go to Jerusalem. Fine. We're going to have a video, or we're going to have a picture, what it looked like today versus what it looked like in the VR or in the app. Now you'll be able to experience this, so you can learn how to walk up to the house of the Lord. Let's go back here. Let me show you the pilgrimage staircase. Look how beautiful this was. Yeah. This is a rendering. And by the way, when the feasts were in Jerusalem, you see those people with the houses? Yeah. You were not allowed to charge rent to anybody in the city when they were visiting, because you have to host them, because the city is holy and it belongs to God and you are his guests. It's only one example of how beautiful this was. So imagine being able to walk in the 1st century street.
Now we've got this fork in the road here. What's going on here?
Let's just go into different places on the southern part of the temple.
Right.
You know, here you can go right or left. You'll be fine. You still go to the temple of the Lord. All right. So,
okay.
So this little map here is really good because it takes you.
I don't want to get lost here, Rico. I'm you got to stay with me.
No worries. Okay. So let's start with Robinson's Arch, because everyone goes there. Okay. You know what that is.
Explain it.
Robinson's Arch is the archaeological evidence of, let me take you here to the marketplace. The marketplace is the area. And then we start walking with a joystick here. You start walking. I'm going to give you an example of the info dots. And you find these all throughout. You see the little scroll here on your left?
Yeah.
You're going to go down. And when you get close to it, what you do, and I'm going to be a little scattered because I don't have time to go step by step, but you can go to my website, wisdomandtorah.com, and my teaching on the temple course will come out in video. And I have almost 7 hours worth of a temple tour explaining everything and how it applies to us today. So you hit the info dot, you hit the scroll. Now this is Ilat Mazar. This is an archaeological evidence, validated, and I got the books to show you. So you can read it directly from the sources that have been validated by the Israeli Archaeological Society. Very important. This is not an opinion. This is not an assumption. This is validated. So let's say you have a Spanish friend. You want to show it to him in Spanish. Immediately goes in Spanish. It took us forever to translate it, but it's opening a huge brand new world to the whole Spanish people. So it's a great blessing for them too. All right. So now that you have that, there's many of them.
You're also thinking of doing that in Hebrew as well?
Yes, absolutely. Right? Yes, we will, because right now we have interest from people in Israel. We want them to read it in their sources. Now, one thing that we're doing that I need to explain to you is that we are not putting any New Testament verses in this one right now, because we want this to be a source for the Jewish people.
I understand that.
A new verse, a New Testament verse, they would assume that we're trying to do missionary work, and then that will close the door. Now, they know we are believers in Yeshua, but we are using all the resources available to talk about the temple. Now, what we're going to do, however, and we're working on this already, is we are going to do an update for the app that you can add to it if you want to. So let's say you buy the app, and then you say, I want to get all of the New Testament verses and locations within the temple and the city. Then you buy that update, and then it will be in your app only. It's not going to be in the original one. That way, we can target different demographics, and we just want to teach them on the temple. I teach them Messiah in the temple, but we don't want to force them to believe in something that they don't believe, but we want them to go back to the temple. Understand, almost 70% of the people in Israel do not study the temple either.
Yeah.
So we have to introduce us somehow, some way. Okay. So.
Hey, brother, just a question. Any of the detail of that scroll, is there any particular actual writing on that scroll in the Hebrew?
Actually, you know what? I haven't even paid attention, because it's more like a demonstration. I haven't really paid attention.
Well, just curious. I just didn't know if it was a little hidden.
They have real Hebrew letters, so I'm sure there is something there, but I haven't really paid attention. Now, what's really cool in the VR, you can actually grab it, the scroll, and it opens. Like when I hit it, you see, when you hit it here, it opens the window, right? But in the VR and the virtual reality, when you click it with your little handheld thing, it comes at you and it opens the scroll, and you can literally open the scroll, make it bigger, make it smaller, put it higher, put it lower. It's really cool. So the dynamics of how to use it is pretty cool. All right. So okay. So now we have archaeological evidence. Now you see that in the foreground there, and that is called the Robinson's Arch. Robinson was one of the Palestine Exploration Fund explorers to Jerusalem, and he found that arch there, just a little stone that came out from there. And back in '67, the top of that arch, there was they took a picture of a young kid sitting on it. That's how high the dirt was.
The earth was, yeah.
Yeah, the earth was way up there. They dug a lot in there. So the Western Wall, look, I'm going to take you all the way straight, okay? I'm going to tell you where the Western Wall is today. It's kind of weird, interesting, because people don't realize that the Western Wall, all of this down here was shops and marketplace inside, out here, outside. And this area is called the temple, but also the marketplace and the royal store. Now, that big old bridge in front of you is Wilson's Arch. And also the top part of that bridge served for pedestrians. And the second part below it, it was the water coming from Solomon's pools in Bethlehem. So it had a dual purpose. It was an aqueduct, and it was also pedestrian. Now, when you go to Jerusalem and you go from the Jaffa Gate, it goes from west to east. So when you go to Jaffa Gate and you walk through Jaffa Gate and you're going right through the Palestinian area, all the shops, you got to go down all the way. That's the original walkway of this particular bridge. It's still there today.
Yeah.
Okay, it's kind of amazing. All right, so I go to this particular here. This is what it's called.
Yeah, go grab that scroll.
Yes, sir. This is Barclay's Gate. When you go up to the Temple Mount today, you actually go right over this gate. That Barclay, again, another archaeologist from the Palestine Exploration Fund, which is an English organization back in the 1850s and 60s. They had a deal with the Ottoman Empire to do a survey of Jerusalem because of the water problem they were having. But all of these guys, Conder, Duvoog, Wilson, Warren, Conrad Sheik, Barclay, Robinson, they were all Bible scholars. So what they did, they also used the archaeology, and they surveyed the land, they surveyed the cisterns, they surveyed everything. And it's incredible. So Barclay's Gate, named after James Turner Barclay, a Christian missionary in Jerusalem in 1852. So we give you the archaeology here. Now, I don't have time to go all the way to, but I want to go back to the Robinson's Arch right here.
This is good exercise.
Yeah, right. This is one of the main, I forgot to show you. I'm sorry. I want to show you what the Western Wall was today. You see that arch coming up on the wall?
Yeah.
Do you see? Okay, so when you go to Jerusalem, this is the first century street that I'm walking on. You see this when you go to Jerusalem and you go to the Robinson's Arch, or the Hall of the Rocks. Now, I am literally standing about 40 feet below what today modern Western Wall is. So in other words, if I look up the wall, you can see the Western Wall. There's an arch that everybody goes under. So people are praying halfway up the wall, because that was a retaining wall that Herod built that is not part of the original walls of the temple. That was added later. In the time of Solomon, that was not there. In the time of Nehemiah, that was not there.
Yeah.
That was a different wall altogether. Many people don't know that. Is this making sense?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I'm familiar with the stuff you're talking about right now. So it's,
So,
it does indeed. It's neat looking at it the way you've captured it here.
So let me go to the trumpeting stone. You see where it says trumpeting stone?
Yeah.
We know the archaeology found it. So now we're looking south. I'm looking west. I'm looking north. That's where the temple building was. I'm looking east, and that's the Royal Stoa right there.
Yeah.
Okay. So now check this out. I'm in the roof on one of the southwestern corner. And I want you to notice, look down. Do you notice the inscriptions? That is the Hebrew inscription of what we see today in the bottom by Robinson's Arch when Charles Warren found the trumpeting stone back in the 1800s, I think, or somewhere in the 20th century. So here you have the information. Josephus talks about how they play the trumpets there. And also the Mishnah in Sukkah 5:5 tells you the amount of trumpets and how many they were playing, separating the holy and the profane. Now, this is archaeological. Any archaeological student will see this, they will be blown away that we have it. How do I know? Because we show them, and they were blown away that we put that there. Because normally temple models, they only care about Jesus in the temple, but they don't care about anything archaeological. So now we're missing a huge amount of education because we really do not understand the temple function. Make sense?
Yes. Yeah, it does.
So that's one example of archaeology. Now, let me show you here. Let me show you something that I think is important for you to see. I'm looking northeast. And that's what, ladies and gentlemen, what you see there now, I'm going to jump here real quick. I want you to see something. Okay. We can literally be here for 2 hours now, Curtis. Now,
I know. I'm.
How many? Can you do me a favor? Do you have a Bible in front of you?
Not in front of me here, but we can.
All right. Matthew 24, verse 1.
Oh, here, I'll just call it up on my.
Matthew 24, verse 1 says, and you could only understand this if you understand the temple. Now, the wall that you see in the far left and where I'm standing were additions by Herod. There was an addition by the Hasmonean family, by Herod. But you notice that inside the Temple Mount, look at here real quick. Inside the Temple Mount, there's a wall, right?
Yeah.
Now the Mishnah tells us about this wall. The Mishnah Midot, which was written by Eliezer ben Yaakov. Eliezer ben Yaakov was a priest who was also a rabbi who lived in the first century with Josephus, with John, with St. James, with all those guys. He wrote everything down. Okay? Yeah. We have the evidence. Tamid, Yomah, and Midot. He wrote it down. Okay. So, do you have Matthew?
I do.
Go ahead and read it for me. Matthew 24:1.
Okay. Yeshua left the temple and was going away. When his disciples came to point out to him the buildings of the temple.
Okay, watch. Where I'm standing is an extension, it's a retaining wall of the temple. If you look to the left of the screen, you're going to see a big wall, right?
Yeah.
That was built by Herod. Now, you see to the right of that big wall, there's a little encasing of a whole bunch of buildings. There's a wall, correct?
Yeah.
That wall was like 36 feet high. That is the original 500 by 500 of the time of Solomon. Okay, that's what throws everybody off. Now, that verse that you just talked about is talking about every building inside that wall.
Inside that wall.
Buildings, everything inside that wall.
So when I'm reading Matthew here, right? So he said, Yeshua left the temple, was going away. When his disciples came to point out to him the buildings of the temple. So you're saying everything inside the wall that dates back to Solomon's temple is what this is referencing in the Brit Hadashah.
Exactly, because that was a 500 cubits by 500 cubits. So, but people today don't know that because they do not study the temple function or the buildings or the archaeology and topography. And all the information is available. I could take you to the Mishnah and show you the evidence.
Actually, it's a good point you're making right now of this, because you kind of think like there would have been givens to them and understandings of, retaining walls and that kind of stuff, which would have been just the knowledge that was just with them. Yet when we come back in hindsight and try and view things, we've lost a lot of that. So we make assumptions reading the Brit now, trying to look at, I can see just out of curiosity here, Rico, where's the Dome of the Rock right now?
Right where that building is. You see that big building in the center?
Yeah.
Smack right there. Now, you want to know how I know? Ask me, Rico, how you know?
Rico, how do you know?
Perfect. Let me take you there. Now, this is the beauty because I'm going to show you archaeology. Now, when I open it and expand this and I hit the icon temple, it's going to give me three options. The holy place, the upper chamber, and the temple roof. Now, why did I put the temple roof? Because they have to have water, they have snow, rain, and snow. So they had a drainage system. They had a ladder to the roof. Now, I'm looking east, I'm looking west. Now, you're thinking, how is this going to show where the temple was? Quite simple. Because if you find the water sources, you find the buildings. A building without water is nothing.
Yeah.
So there's a scroll. Let's read that scroll right there. It says the place for drawing down the water. In Hebrew, this is called Bet Horodat Hamayim. Is the chamber is a 3 cubits wide. 3 cubits is quite big. It's a drainage system from the roof all the way down on the south of the building to the east. It will go this way. It will go from west to east on the south side of the building. And then it will drain to a cistern. It's called Cistern 28 by Konrashik, which is found under Beit Aptinas, where the laver was. You find the water sources, you find the buildings, you find the location.
Right. Okay. And the laver, just explain the laver for people actually.
We're going to go there in a minute. So
okay.
Let me read this real quick.
So that's important. Yes. The relationship there.
The place for drawing down water an open space where water drained from the roofs of the compartments and the sanctuary into cisterns. This drain was located in the southwestern corner of the temple building roof over the offices. The drain was 3 cubits wide and extended from this location eastward to below the southeastern office, where it emptied into a conduit. Now, we found the conduit. Khan Rashid found the conduit of this drainage system. It's incredible, okay? And he found it in 1867. Now, think of this. Over 100 years, they've known about this, and we have some people saying the temple is in the city of David because there was no water on the Temple Mount. And we have 66 million gallons of water that Solomon's pools can provide from Bethlehem to the upper city and the lower city. And you can find that in this book right here, which is actually a sanctioned book by the Archaeology in Jerusalem. I was just reading it while I was talking to you earlier. Okay, so we have the conduit. The water passed through a short conduit and emptied into the tunnel beneath the Beit Aptinas. Now, where's Beit Aptinas? We're going to take you there. This is one of the advantages of this app because you can go anywhere. So let's go to the Court of the Women. And I'm going to guide you now. We are in the Court of the Women. Look how beautiful this is. Are you guys enjoying this?
Yeah.
Okay. You see the floor?
Yeah.
That was my 2 cents into the app. That floor is actually archaeologically proven. In the city of David, they actually put a sample there by the shop where the archaeologists found a whole bunch of remnants of the tiles in different places, specifically on the Temple Mount with the by the Sifting project. So they put it together, and the archaeologists now know more or less what the tiles look like, because what they did in the Holy Sepulchre, they took tiles from the temple and they transferred them to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Okay.
Yeah. Just for people who aren't familiar with that, explain what the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is on the Temple Mount.
That's what Queen Helena said, that Jesus was buried and that where he resurrected.
Yeah, and it's actually up on the Temple Mount, and it's
actually a little bit northwest of the Temple Mount, outside the Temple Mount.
Sorry, but when you go in, you're sort of sitting outside of it. But I mean, the church, there's no historical biblical significance in the sense of what. Yeah.
That was just fake news, man.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where a lot of people miss this. And
right.
And like you say, the fact that they hijack some of this stuff to shove over there.
Hey, the Via Dolorosa, right? It's really funny because I was there and I saw all the Catholics that were praying in a corner, and they had this stone against the wall. They said that the hand of Jesus was against that wall. And after they left, I made a video and I said, this is one of the places where myth beats truth, because the Via Dolorosa, the original one, is like 30 feet below ground. And I said, if Yeshua's hand was this, he was a giant with small hands, okay? Because there's no way that was the original, Via Dolorosa, but people rather
either that or he could stretch a long way.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
So right, that's the wrong interpretation of the outstretched arm. That's not what it's talking about.
Oh, for sure, man. So this is the archaeological. Now you see, you have the 13. We have the chambers, and we also have the shofar, where you put offerings. You want to talk about offerings? They have 13 chests in the temple where people can give money for different type of offerings to keep them going throughout the year. So giving money in the temple was actually a big part. So when somebody says, well, it was all agriculture and animals, they have no clue about the temple.
Yeah.
They're just speaking from one side of their lips, and they don't know what in the world they're talking about, because money was always there too. Okay, so now we're looking south, and now we're going to go through the upper gate. The upper gate is where the 15 steps of the Psalms of Ascent. Now, these 15 steps are very important, because the Psalms of Ascent, 120 to 134, were sang in each one of these steps to teach you to ascend to the mountain of the Lord. Okay? So now, once we go up to the Psalms of Ascent, and, we have plenty of information to talk about, but look how big this gate was. It was, I think it's 20 cubits high by 10 cubits wide. That's approximately like 32 feet high, you know.
Yeah.
Now we are in the altar, and look at the size of the temple building. And look how beautiful this is. I'm looking north to Bet Hanitzot. This is what is called the Etzrat Israel. It's the area of the Israelites. Now, remember the story of Luke? When Luke is talking about Zechariah praying in the temple in the time of incense.
Yeah.
And the text tells you that he was praying inside and everyone was praying outside. Okay? So
But this is inside.
this is outside where the children of Israel would have been praying.
Right.
While Zechariah was in there praying. Let me move this way so you see what I mean.
Oh, I see. You're saying, okay. Yeah.
All of Israel would have been praying in this area right here. This was their area.
Right.
Now, you see those 3 steps in front of me?
Yeah.
That's the area where only the Levites can stand. Perfect order. Now, this will go perfect with your theme here because you teach about order, roles, and teamwork. Well, all of Israel can stand here. No women can be here. Only the Levites can be here. And then on that platform, only the priests can be here. Not even the Levites can be here.
Yeah, I see.
They have their own prescribed areas. Now,
Rico, just on that, just when we're looking at that, because when you understand the design of what the Father's doing, I always use the term shadow picturing, or we're looking at something because everything is pointing to the spiritual. You know how I am that way.
yeah.
So when I look at something like this, why would there be this separation? Like, why does order matter? Why is there, this whole, why is the Father into even matters of authority? What's it matter?
Sacred space. There are different levels of holiness. And look, it's teaching us this. When you go outside, you can have the area of the Gentiles. Let me show you. I'll take you back here again. I think this is really important what I want to share with you right now. I'm going to take you right into the Sanhedrin Council. This is where the Sanhedrin will be. I'm going to take you outside the building. I want to show you something very significant. Okay, you see this? You see that fence right there?
Yep.
That is called the Soreg. So I'm standing over here. If you notice, I'm looking southeast. This is the wall inside the 500 by 500, all the buildings. Now, this wall that you see is spoken of in Acts 21 when Paul got arrested because he was accused that he took a Gentile through here. This is called the Soreg. It's all around the temple. So you have a wall and then you have a fence that only circumcised in the heart and circumcised in the flesh can go through there. So everyone can be where I'm at right now. Women, children, strangers, nations, everyone. But then only people who are committed in covenant can do this. Only covenantal people can be here.
Now, this is interesting because I reflect this all back to, as you know, in our drawing close to Messiah or Yeshua.
Right.
And for me, this is all reflecting something very important in all of our walks to truly understand something.
Yes.
Because the Father, he does have a legitimate way. He's outlaid the shadow picture of an order of something. You just don't get to claim intimacy. You don't get to just run through this. Does that make sense?
It's exactly the point. Look, what did I just do as you were talking? I went up a higher level of holiness. I went from the area where it was common for everybody, a greater level of intimacy past the wall or that fence. Then you have to go up another level. Now, when I turn around, let me show, I'm going to answer that question. I'm going to walk through this, Esrat Hanashim, which is the court of the women. Once I come in here, all the women can be here. Not a problem. And all the men can be here. All the children can be here. But now, when you go in through those doors, now you see that eastern door? This is the equivalent to the eastern door of the tabernacle. Okay? So now you're going to another level of elevation. Now women cannot go beyond this point. Why? Because in the ancient world, women were prostitutes of the temples. And they practiced fornication. In other words, ritual sex. Thus, the God of Israel says, women in my kingdom are not going to be in areas where the priests are, so the nations will not say that I have temple prostitutes. So in fact, God is not separating women because he doesn't like women. He is trying to protect their honor amongst the nations. That's why they have to be virgins and stuff like that. All right, now watch this. When you go up, then you go in here, you got to go up another steps. Israelites can be here, men. Only the Levites can be here. Only the priests can be here. Now, notice, I'm going to go up another 12 steps. I'm north of the altar. Now I got 12 steps. Only the priests can come here. And there's a separation because of the veil. Look how big that veil was. That's the one that rented, by the way.
Yeah.
Now, let me look towards the altar. Now, what does this teach us? That when you want to get closer to the Lord, the closer you want to get to the Lord, the lonelier it is. You cannot take the world with you. And that's why everyone in the Hebrew roots, when they come, they say, man, I'm in the wilderness. No one likes me. No one wants to be with me. That's because God is trying to take you to a high level of holiness. The Sabbath, the feast, eating clean, the commandments. So you cannot live like the world, although you are in the world. Only the high priest can go into the Holy of Holies here. Only the high priest can go into the holy place and the Holy of Holies. You see? So the whole teaching of the temple teaches you how to walk and how, now you know why you're so always lonely when you walk in the Torah for a little while until you see covenantal people who are committed, then you see each other. Now, what do you see there? See if you can make that out.
Well, I'm seeing between the veils.
Right. There were two veils separating the holy place and the Holy of Holies, and there was a big veil separating the entrance of the temple to the holy place. This is what the priest will do on the Day of Atonement. He will come and he start walking north. Once he got north, then he turned and he went into the Holy of Holies. Now, during the Second Temple period, there was no Ark of the Covenant. That's why we didn't put it there. Okay? So you see what I mean? So the temple teaches us that there's holiness all throughout. Now, let me show you something really interesting.
Just say something, Rico. Just sorry, real quick. I don't know about the viewers and those who will be watching this later, but even though it is, quote, just an app, when you were walking in, I don't know if anybody else felt this, I was starting to feel my heart more in my stomach. Like, absolutely. Actually, even though just a recreation, starting to feel the gravity of that walking closer. Like you said, it is lonelier and it's a smaller space, right? Yes. It goes from wider, smaller. And we see that in our own life, right? With the people we trust, the people that we have love with, like, and so I felt that. And I think it's just really, it's a testament to such the great job that you and Joseph did on this and the research, because it really makes you feel, wow, I shouldn't be here right now. And you're walking us through right to the Holy of Holies. So thank you, brother, for sharing that.
No, you're welcome.
I can't even tell you, Rico, what goes on. My mind's just exploding, because like, again, it's teaching these weightier matters at such a level. And as we've been going through this, I'm just going, my brain's just, heading for the spiritual, and it's just fantastic. But we can't go there right now in conversation, as we'll be here for hours.
Oh, I know, right?
It's just staggering.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Yeah. You know that if you stand outside the Eastern Gate, outside the Court of the Women, you will not be able to see the temple building, even though it was 22 stories high.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's put it to the test. Let's go out.
See, I even want to talk about things like that. This is, honestly, we've got to make like a 10-hour video, and I get to speak about weightier matters as we walk through this thing. This is just fantastic.
Let's do that. That's the whole idea. Let me show you. Okay, so now I'm going outside where the normal entrance was. Okay, I'm going to turn around. I'm going to look west again. Now, that gate is the eastern gate leading to the court of the women. You got to go 7.6 cubits go up. So if I look up, this is made to scale, by the way. You can see the temple building. You got to go up 22 cubits in elevation from here to the entrance of the temple building. 22 cubits, 22 Hebrew letters. Get it?
Yeah. It's fantastic.
So it's like,
look, I'm going to a space, man. My mind's just racing right now. I mean, we're talking about even the principles of headship, what's being viewed here. It's just staggering. Okay. It's all in the design of this thing.
Yeah, I mean, what I want to do with you sometime is talk to you about the administration of the temple, because there was 18,000 priests, not counting the Levites, just the priests. And there were women working and there were men working. There was a huge enterprise going on in the temple that people never talk about. Okay, so I don't have time to talk about that building.
I know. No, you're going to get me. Yeah, we're going on a tangent here.
All right. So we're going to go up to the Lord, right? We got to go up a certain level of elevation. Then we're going to go inside the women's courtyard. They're all lined up. You notice the gates are all lined up. You can see directly to the veil if all the doors were open. That altar was 15 feet high, by the way.
Look at it, and all the lambs there ready to. Yeah, it's just interesting.
Yeah. Now, I don't really have time to go too long, but I want to show you something really interesting. And it has.
Okay, let's finish up with this. As for the temple tour, it's almost something. Man, this is just.
I know, right? We also have here something quite interesting. Hopefully, it's through this door. Hold on, let me get through here. This is where they eat the sacrifices, the family and the priests and the Levites. It was order, man. This is a whole thing. It's a big deal. You will love it because you have all of these ministries and the order and everything. And, this will be perfect. They learn that everyone will know their role. Nobody will take anybody's roles away. They all respected each other's gift. God gave you a gift and a job. You did it to the best of your ability. Yeah. Now, look at it. This is why I help you with your gift. I'm not trying to belittle you or to compete with you. My job is to empower with my gift to your gift. Yeah. And that's how we can work together and not encroach on each other, So look how beautiful this is. This is where they come hang out. And now I want to show you something really cool, and I'll finish with this, but you have to see it because this is like archaeology, and it's also temple function, and it's also spiritual. Now, this is where they kept the lambs. They have to keep 6 lambs in here at all times. And then this chamber is where they made the showbread right over here. In the VR, you can literally pick up the bread. Okay? That was a chamber. That's some of the stuff they needed for the bread. And then you come over here, and then you go through that door. Now, you see that marker on the wall? Right there, it looks like a mezuzah.
Yeah.
You find that all throughout. These are holiness markers. You have that in your house, by the way, but it's unofficial. Let's say that I go visit you. Let's say I go visit you, right? This represents sacred space. That means that no Levite can be in here in this building. No Israelite can be in this building. Only priest is most holy. If a Levite or an Israelite come through here, they will be encroaching, and the penalty will be death by the hand of God, because you're encroaching on holy things. If I go to your house, you invite me, I don't have permission to go running around walking through your whole house. I only have permission to go into the room that you assigned me. That's my sacred space. But this will be equivalent to your bedroom. In other words, that's sacred space to you and your wife. No one can go through. So the Holy of Holies is the same way. Some of the buildings was the same way. It was restricted to certain people. Everywhere you go is the same way. You go to a building, not everybody can use their bathrooms. Not everybody can go into their offices. We understand that in the regular domain in the West, but when it comes to the temple, now we all want to go into the Holy of Holies. Anyway, so check this out.
I tell you something, Rico. And this is the kind of thing that, as a partner, I know you teach on this as well. And I love how you relate a lot of this to the temple, but then this is where it does teach us, because, and especially people who have come from a Christian journey, it's almost because the blood of Messiah has been sprinkled for them. It's almost now like, well, I've got the right to run around your house and be disrespectful.
Right.
And it's almost like this mentality has crept in such a way and has been brought across the river. Quite frankly, in the Messianic and Hebrew roots movements, I can't believe the level of disrespect and things that go on.
Oh, well, what is the common denominator?
Yeah, well, it's right. So we, like what I'm, this is why we give the river analogy, right? Because it's like, what, let's get in the living waters and start figuring out how this is supposed to look, because how do we be set apart if we're acting like the world?
But wait a minute. What was that the Lord said through the prophet Ezekiel? To show the house to the house of Israel, so they will be ashamed of their iniquities, of their abominations. That's the command to Ezekiel. Show the temple to the house of Israel, so they will be ashamed. What did the house of Israel do? They changed the feast from the 7th month to the 8th. Yeah. They changed the temple from Jerusalem to Bethel and also Tel Dan. They changed the priesthood from the Levites and the priests to whatever they wanted to. Hello, welcome to the time of Jeroboam. No wonder we're in chaos, because we're doing the same thing. Why? We do not understand the holiness of God. Now, okay, so let me finish with this. I'm in this room. It's called Beit HaMoked. Now, you see that little dome in there? Inside the dome, and I'm not going to go in, but you see the little black stones in the foreground?
Yeah.
Those were the stones that Antiochus Epiphanes defiled of the altar. They saved them. Okay, because they're holy, they cannot throw them out. Okay, now, so let's say that this is the chamber where the priests live. How is the resolution? Does it look good?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it does for me. I'm not sure for the others watching, but it's coming through just fine here.
So this is where the priests will live. And they had like three floors, okay? This one and 2 more above. Now, this building was 50 cubits long. No, 50 cubits wide, by 100 cubits long, by 40 cubits high. It's like maybe about 8 stories high, about 23 stories long, and about 15 stories wide. It's huge. It's a big building. A lot of people live there. So let's say a priest had a seminal discharge, which is a normal thing for any male. It happens. They cannot go through the holy area there. How do they leave the temple? The Mishnah tells us how it happened. And I'm going to show you. Now, this is what sets this app apart from any other. And I'm quoting you from 2 archaeologists, Dan Bahat, the leading authority of the Western Wall, and also Ori Pelech. She also told us about this. Any archaeologist, this was found by Charles Warren. I'm going to take you there. So I'm going to come around here, and the Mishnah tells us this, but Charles Warren found it in 1867. He found the tunnel where the priests used to get out when they were ritually unclean. You see right here?
Yeah.
The midot, let me read it to you. One of them had a seminal emission. He would depart and walk through the passage that went under the birah. The birah is one of the buildings, okay? And the candles will burn on one side or the other. That means that they have light on one or the other. And to reach the place of immersion. Interesting. Cistern number 14 was found right over here, and just so happened that when you go down in this tunnel that is there today, because they found it, this is based on research. What you do, you go in through here, you go here, and you'll find a mikvah. There was a mikvah in there, just like the Mishnah says. Wow. There was a tunnel. Now, this is a kosher mikvah, by the way. In the VR, I go through the water, okay? And I go here this way. If I come here in the VR, I can literally bend down under the water, and you see the steps. You show that to a rabbi, he'll go nuts. He's going to go like, oh my God, you got a kosher mikvah in the VR. Really? Oy vey, oy vey. Anyway, so you go here. Now watch this. You see in this corner right there, let's read this. This is really important. It says, and there was a fireplace there and a place with a chair of dignity. Now, what do we call the bathroom nowadays? I'm going to the throne, right?
The throne, yeah, to the throne. Yeah.
In the temple, it was called the chair of dignity. So what we have here is the bathroom that the Mishnah talks about. Okay? So then once he takes the mikvah, or he goes to the bathroom, now he wants to walk out, and he has to wait somewhere. So now I'm walking eastward to the tunnel, still there to this day. And Charles Warren found this other tunnel here running north to south. This was the waiting area. Now, this is archaeology showing the function of the temple and how they did it. How about that? You see this? So
Yeah.
now, once you go out, let's say that, okay, you can't officiate today. How do you get out of the temple? So the Mishnah tells us about it. You got to remember, the Bible doesn't have to explain this because it was a law for the priests. They have to walk out. They had a commandment.
Yeah, and that's a point. We're talking about a place of priestly, the priesthood and intimacy. And this is why in the West, and especially the Christian views, we're so disrespectful with how we treat even any matter of authority anymore, that we wouldn't understand that this whole analogy of just what was put in place for those that were the closest in this whole set apart place. And like, this is quite a big deal, isn't it? They're going through quite something here.
Oh yeah.
just to keep in a good space, Now
they leave the temple, and the Mishnah tells us that this right here is called the Taddy Gate, and it looked as a triangle, and it had no use for the regular people because it was the place where the priests would get out when they were ritually unclean.
Right. Would that be like a gate of shame if you came out of there, or you'd be fine walking out of there?
No, you'll be fine because they knew that was only for the priests. Now, what's interesting is I could take you to the Temple Mount today, and I'll tell you exactly what that gate was based on the tunnel, and I tell you what the tunnel was today.
You haven't invited me yet.
You're invited.
Okay, listen, honestly, we'd be here for hours, but we're going to take a couple of questions. Just walk us through this last bit here. And also, too, on this, Rico, just before we break for first the questions. Okay, so how do I go get this? Tell me how I go and get this the
app. You can go to Apple Store, look for Second Temple. Second, the word Second Temple.
Second Temple, and you put that in the app. So if you've got a Apple device, you're going to go into the Apple Store and you're going to put in Second Temple.
Yeah, and then you're going to have the app is there, and you can download it when Shabbat is over, $24.99. Or you can go to the Google Play. Now, you can put this in your devices, iPad or Android devices on that. And we're going to start working on the Mac. Joe and I, we're the only ones in the world who own the VR. But we got some exciting news. We have the rabbi in Israel who we're becoming good friends with, who wants to, we want to open a location in Israel to show the VR of this temple model to all the children and also the tourists. So this could be a huge deal in Israel. What's really cool is this. One of the things that I wanted was that I would not approve of this project unless they put my teacher's name in the credits.
Yeah.
The reason is his research, but the reason is that the Temple Institute never gave him credit for any of the 100 research that he did for them for free and corrections he made because he's a believer in Yeshua. They will never give him any credit.
Right. Yeah.
Well, guess what? Now their models are plagued with mistakes. They will not fix them. Okay, because they don't have the money. and they just want to bring awareness of the temple. They don't really care about accuracy right now because they just made all the pictures and all that so long ago. They're still using it. It's a lot of money. I understand. But if it has mistakes, why keep selling books with mistakes in it? Makes no sense.
Well, I mean, that's the whole human dilemma, isn't it? Right through all of this.
The links to the app will be in the YouTube description also. We'll make sure that anybody watching this, they'll be in the caption right below. If you just go, you'll see the links to both the Mac and then the Android. So we'll make sure that's easy for everybody. Yep, there'll be two shortened URLs, so that'll be just really easy and accessible for anyone.
Is there Google?
But I also want to say that the Temple Institute has done a great job promoting the temple and making awareness to the temple and doing a lot of good things, you know, to make what we're doing today happen. So it's like anything. They play a very important role, and they've done a good job, and they've done what they've done. That is good, fine. But we're doing a different direction. So what we have now is the opportunity to just present information. We're not trying to do missionary work. We just want to present the temple, you know, and our whole idea is to respect the Jewish people and the resources, and more importantly, the temple, because it's the house of God. You know, that should go beyond any denomination or any religion. You follow? It should be part of the people. So,
but Rico, we do want to use a tool like this, though, to really take believers in Messiah through, you know, that whole, you know, from that whole perspective. I mean, you know, you've not done this just for an educational purpose. This has a great application.
Right, great value. Now, you see, you look at what is in front of you right there?
Yeah.
Let me give you an example of what the New Testament now comes alive. The Bible says that Stephen and even Yeshua were teaching in that portico right there.
Yeah.
That portico is Solomon's portico.
Yeah.
So now we know where they were teaching. Now, I want to show you what it looked like from inside. I want to show you what it looked like from inside and the little piece of information. The eastern portico was the oldest portico of the temple, known as Solomon's portico. Due to Solomon originally constructed the first portico of this at this location. The Hasmoneans extended this portico further south, followed by Herod, who further extended to both the south, west, and north. But you see, now you know exactly where Stephen was teaching when he got arrested and when Yeshua was teaching, because the Bible tells us where it was.
Yeah.
So what do? Did we change the text? No, we actually show you where it was.
Yeah.
We have the archaeology, and this is what we bring to the table, a tool for study.
And there'll be a reason why it was there, Rico, not just the what. There'll be a reason why it was actually happening there. And these are the treasures for us to uncover, you know, and these kinds of things. Yeah, I'm going to get all, I gotta stop myself here, Rico, because seriously, I like.
We got a couple questions come through
that
I think Rico would really enjoy once we come back. Yeah, you got to come back, brother, and do, you know, we'll do like a 5-part, you know, virtual tour, you know, a live stream tour, you know, with, you know, brotherly Two Sticks commentary throughout would be pretty awesome.
I'm thinking more along the lines of something like, let's take the portion as recorded in the Gospels and just look at that part, you know, in that gospel around that teaching. Go, you know, don't go in here. Just exactly, almost like retrace the steps of the moments where, you know, we have got this interaction. Because what a wonderful tool to be able to set you in the scene.
Right.
You know, and put these things into context, because Elohim did not choose, you know, this way with this building at this time because it's a coincidence. There's things he's doing and reasons for us to find out. And this is where there's a richness in the project that you've undertaken here, Rico. And for you to come and take the time, you know, just to give us a glimpse of this, especially given that you've been dealing with, you know, some tragedy, you know, regarding your teacher. And and best friend in the family, and how difficult that all is. I mean, it's just fantastic you took the time to do this.
It's a pleasure, brother. I mean, it's the house of the Lord, and there's a time to mourn, there's a time to cry, there's a time, but when it comes to the house, that comes to the integrity of my king and the honor of his kingdom, we have to, in the good days, we'll praise him. In the bad days, we'll praise him. Blessed be the name of the Lord, brother. That's just the way it is. So
Amen.
I'll do my best. I'll do my best. And